Are you happy?
A documentary is about to be released in various cinemas in February, a film called Beyond the Wasteland, all about Mad Max fans. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the writer-director of Beyond the Wasteland, Eddie Beyrouthy. Eddie, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here and to have a chat with you about the documentary.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. I have vague memories, though, of seeing an earlier version of this film maybe last year. Was there an early version that you had produced?
Yeah, so there was an earlier version which had a slightly different edit, and it was always anticipated to evolve and change quite a bit. So we originally wanted to include some archival footage, and we to almost bring back some memories of the 70s and the 80s, through the streets, through the lifestyle, through the cars, the V8s, even going back to cinemas and theaters, and that was a bit of a journey because as you can imagine, there's millions and millions of hours of archives, and we reached out to the National Film and Sound Archive, NFSA originally, and that was pretty much what got us going on that path to because it's about the fans, it's about the cars, the culture, but we also wanted to relive moments of the 70s and 80s that influenced the Mad Max culture, and one was the oil crisis of 73, 74. So we were trying to tie all that in as well. It sort of evolved from there. And, we've all been living through these, interesting times. So it gave us a lot more time to, really, really master the documentary and get it right. Because, once it's released and it's out there, that's pretty much what you have and what you get and what you go with. So it was definitely an interesting journey.
It sounds like it, and well done for persevering. So, when we think back to the original Mad Max film, George Miller's film from 1979, it was such a powerful and important film of the day. So for you to be able to make a documentary about the fans, about the various people who performed, Roger Ward and so many other people who were part of that original Mad Max film, that is quite a process in talking to, finding, and putting together all the interviews, etc.
Yeah, definitely. So our journey began in August of 2018 when so Bertrand Cadat is a really good friend of mine, and we've always had this, sort of a bit of a discussion about potentially shooting a journey film where, as you're aware, he played Clunk in a toe cutter gang, and he also designed all the fairings and the motorbikes to make them sort of futuristic, and it was something that George Miller was looking for. So we sort of had a discussion, and it was always just meant to be a journey from Queensland to Victoria. So it was Bertrand's personal journey. But the more we met people, so Phil Lambert, who's my producer, and I, we are big fans of Mad Max and the franchise, but we just didn't know how big the culture was and how many people were living and breathing Mad Max, and that was the sort of most interesting part. And it was never intended to be a behind the scenes documentary. That's been done, and we pay respect to the madness of Max and pretty much everything along those lines. And it was always about the fans. So it was after we learned about the fact that Mad Max was, I guess it was always, it was born in Australia, but then we met fans from Japan, from Italy, from France, from Germany, from the US as well, and the project just grew and grew. So, and we never want to. We understood that there was a culture that was, pretty much created from the Mad Max franchise, and it's a culture that's still being embraced to this very day, and it's bigger than ever, and it's always evolving. There's always the younger generation are catching on as well, and it sort of put us on this path where we were we were always surprised and in complete we were just sort of fascinated with the fact that there's a story to be told, and there's a franchise based on a franchise that had such an enormous following and such an enormous I guess cult as well. And the rest is history. The rest of it's pretty much what you see on screen. It was always when you were talking earlier about the original cut. It was as you can imagine, most directors, they want their own director's cut, and it was always about 105 minutes, maybe 110. But we sort of trimmed it down, and we got it to a nice duration. Within respect to distribution and and slot times and so forth. But there's a lot of footage that's never been seen, and hopefully we can find a way to continue to share people's stories. So that was interesting.
Absolutely. I can just see a massive DVD release with all the bits that you had to cut out of the final version of the film.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when you're talking about 60 terabytes of content, and it's quite a number of hours, and Stephen Sander, who was our editor, he did a phenomenal job. We had months and months of meetings and discussions, and we were well and truly into a pre-visualization of what we were sort of expecting. But then as it went on and on, it just grew and grew. But there's always a point where you sort of put a stop to it, and you appreciate what you have, and you just go from there.
And here it is. And you've mentioned Phil Lambert, and he also, apart from producing with you, also contribute music score to the film. Yeah,
he did. Yeah, definitely. So Phil is a genius composer by trade. He just creates the most amazing piece of music, and it fit. I mean, he was. We had some discussions earlier, and we sort of wanted to. I looked at options to try and pay homage and pay respect, and have a bit of sort of nostalgia going on as well. Everything. 95% of the score is Phil's work, and then there's a few sort of bits and pieces where we sort of licensed some rock music as well. It took Phil quite a while. He was locked away in the studio for a couple of months, and tried to we sort of went back and forth and tried to just make it blend in, but at the same time put it into a almost an ensemble of visuals and music and graphics, and try to tie it all in as best as we could.
Okay.
And at the same time putting on a producer hat as well, and that was quite a process for us as our first feature project. So
yes, well done on that, and again it works really well. And I imagine the budget had to extend to traveling to the 6 other countries where all these Mad Max fans are located, so that in itself must have been quite an experience.
Definitely. So we had a script, and we had almost a bit of a structure. But what I decided to do was through Jim Tank from the US, and Robbie from Italy, and Yoshi from Japan, and Melvin from France. We basically, I didn't want to give them too many instructions and too many, almost to restrict their lifestyle, because, you can imagine you could, Jim's got an amazing lifestyle, and, and Yoshi had his ways of living this Mad Max world. So what we ended up doing was we sort of set 5 days in each country, sometimes 6, including travel. And I would say to Jim, okay, Jim, show me why Mad Max is your world, and how Mad Max influenced you. And we had some amazing, we're just pretty much a crew of 5 living out of, from off a van, and all our gear was in there. We just drove around the world, shooting a documentary. But we had met everyone at the 2019 Maryborough 40th anniversary event. So we had, it was a sort of initial meet and greet. We just went from there. So we just really wanted to know what keeps these guys, after all these years, why is Mad Max so important for them, and how they're influenced by this culture. So
I'm intrigued by one thing. Did you approach Mel Gibson at all?
No. So we always wanted to. It was sort of something in the pipeline, but it's I just wanted, I guess, people to appreciate that the Beyond the Wasteland is about the fans. It's the fans are our heroes. you know, and it's about their lives, and it's about the culture, and it's about how they, you know, and you've seen it yourself, Peter, how they live. You know, there's people in the desert that, you know, live, you know, on the Wasteland grounds, and so it was, and we knew that the majority, if not all the people, all the viewers that watched this documentary would have at least have heard of Mad Max, and at least have seen Mad Max. So, and you know, most of us know Mel Gibson. Most of us know, you know, many of the actors that are involved, that were involved, you know, and also with the late Hugh Keays-Byrne as well. But it was always about the fans and the culture, and, you know, this sort of real, you know, special community where people, you know, live their everyday lives, but then after 6, they're, you know, they're Max, you know, Rocketansky driving around on, you know, in the Monday lookout. And so I forgot to mention Adrian Bennett at the Mad Max Museum as well. So he's one of our main characters, and he's been an, you know, enormous help with supporting the documentary, and his wife Linda, of course. And yeah, it was always about the fans. You know, we all know Mel, and we respect Mel, and we really appreciate Mel. But it felt like it was time to you know, give the fans and the heroes their time to shine, because these guys, most of them would live the life of Max Rocketansky, and they just, you know, so we knew who Mel was, but we didn't know who the other guys were that have kept this franchise going for 40 years, you know, and I'm sure another 400 years to go from there. So, yeah.
Well, it's certainly developed a life of its own, and you've mentioned the museum, which is quite interesting, and also the whole cosplay issue where fans can dress up in various settings as Mad Max characters, etc. It's I suppose it does have a life of its own, and with George Miller, of course, making Mad Max Fury Road, that just continues the interest in the whole Mad Max sort of franchise.
Definitely, and especially what we found through Fury Road, it almost reintroduced. Yeah, there was always the Mad Max culture, but then we found that the newer generations, you know, the next generations were also appreciating this world, you know, and it's as you know, most of us have seen Fury Road. It just blew us away. You know, it's creative genius, and especially from, you know, being a proud Australian, it's good to see that. You know, we are on the map. You know, we are, and definitely now there's, you know, Mad Max Furiosa as well, which is, you know, to be shot later this year, I think. But yeah, it definitely it really introduced the younger generation, and that's what we wanted to showcase as well. You know, to show that these, you know, anyone who's under 30 knows Mad Max and is, you know, appreciates it. And a lot of it is very family based. You know, you'd have Michael Lehman, who, you know, is a diehard Mad Max fan, but his kids are with him as well. You know, his children, and they're going on this road trip through the desert. You know, almost reliving, you know, that sort of escapism from the real world, and trying to, you know, put it all together. And I'm sure it's possible with other franchises as well, with other films. But the more we sort of, you know, dived into this world, the more we appreciate that there's a lot more. You know, it's special. It's really special. So that's what we're hoping we can, you know, share with the rest of the world.
Yeah, certainly that is the case. It's so interesting how the original film in '79, when it was released, and it was good to see Alan Finney in the film, and a few others. The film was dismissed and was not reviewed particularly well initially, especially by some critics who felt that it was beyond the traditional Australian film, whatever that traditional Australian film is supposed to be, and so it broke the mold in many respects, and hence that's another reason for its popularity and for fans to really perpetuate its memories.
Definitely. With what I sort of found that was so fascinating was that you had this, you know, the 70s and the 80s, and, you know, I mean, I was born in 84, so I'm, you know, I was quite young, so, you know, at the time, but it was almost the beginning of this evolution of, you know, filmmaking that had to have happened. You know, we had to have developed, and you know the cliche, I think outside the square. This wasn't even a square. This is thinking outside. You know, the whole, you know, the entire, you know, universe in a way. And you know, there was quite a bit of influence with, you know, as I said, with the oil crisis, and I believe George and the late Byron Kennedy were also they used to drive an ambulance, so they were, you know, they were sort of in a medical scene, and that had, you know, influence on Mad Max. And I'm sure there's a lot of other things that were going on, but it sort of it was this, you know, it was something that would probably never happen today, as far as, you know, the dare, you know, the stunts, the effects, but it was you know, I feel like it was a time when Australian cinema had to almost be reinvented, or had to have, you know, taken a slight different, you know, direction as well, you know. And you know, and it was you know, it was at the time of, you know, when obviously Australian culture was evolving, was growing, you know. I mean, there was a few things that were going on that were sort of off, you know, that needed some work. But yeah, it definitely put us on the map, and it was, you know, it was around a time when we were, you know, slowly being introduced to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you know, Van Damme and all those other guys, and at the time even Stone was sort of around there. But it was you know, it was an interesting time to even put, you know, the classic Holdens and Fords on the big screen, because not many people knew, you know, too much about it. And then even, you know, with the Kawasaki motorcycles, that really made headlines as well, you know, coming from the other side of the world. Yeah, so it was definitely an interesting approach. And here we are, 40 years on. Yeah, it's still
40 years on, exactly. And just to add another layer, that the whole dystopian future of that Mad Max sort of put together, and of course that's become a lot more commonplace now in with many filmmakers and genre films. But again, it was quite groundbreaking in '79.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of almost set a new, you know, not a genre, but a new way of you know, thinking outside. You know, as you said, you know, it was a very dystopian world, and it was something that, you know, we weren't really used to, you know. And it had, you know, it had some realism, you know, it had quite a bit of, you know, obviously with the oil crisis, and, you know, Max trying to hunt down. But no, it was interesting. Yeah, it was definitely a time to make it work. So
it's good to see in the film Joanne Samuel, for example, because it was such a male sort of dominated sort of story in many respects, which I know has been addressed to some extent with Fury Road. But it's good to see Joanne Samuel, but also that sequence about destroying those caravans in that stunt. That stunt ride. I mean, there's such intriguing stuff that's in your film.
Yeah, well, that's definitely. Look, that was rumored, so we knew that there was going to be a stunt going on, and, you know, I had met with Rob Sheehan in Queensland, and we had a chat, and you know, and Rob's he's such a beautiful person. He's so humble. He's down to earth. And he just kept teasing me, saying, "Look, Ed, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Something's." I'm like, "All right, well, let's do it." And it was always one caravan. Well, until the day before, it was always set to be one caravan, and then Rob brought out two. I'm like, "Rob, you got me there," you know. So but and that's what I mean about the fans. And, you know, these guys, you know, have their everyday lives, and they do their everyday jobs and everything else, but then they you know, for someone like Rob to come out and, you know, plan a stunt, and, you know, and he's a very experienced stunt man as well, so he's done quite a bit. You know, to relive the stunt, and to want to, you know, it just feels like, you know, watching the film and collecting a poster or a postcard or a cap isn't enough. You know, these guys feel this, you know, this sort of connection that they just can't really explain. You know, it's part of their life. You know, it's part of their well-being, and it's part of being a human being. You know, we do extraordinary things, and Rob's stunt was definitely an extraordinary, you know, and it was by surprise as well. And, you know, I mean, you see that sort of stuff, and you think to yourself, you know, there are some very, you know, inspiring people out there, you know, and it doesn't have to be, it's not about the money. It's not about, you know, having all these materialistic things. It's just wanting to be involved, and, you know, to have a sense of community and have a sense of belonging, and drive through 2 caravans. So and the rest of it, yeah, no, it was very interesting. So Rob was definitely a key influencer for the film.
Okay. Now, it's terrific that the film is being released. I noticed the way it's being gradually rolled out, and I think it starts on the 5th of February. Is that right, at the Coburg Drive-In?
That's correct. That's correct. So we said, yeah, so we decided with, with our distributor, Umbrella Entertainment, and Monster Pictures, who are handling the marketing. Yeah, we wanted to, have a world premiere that was almost, paying homage to the franchise and to the film. I thought, what better than Coburg Drive-Ins? And we have shot some. There's an opening shot that's that is set in that's filmed at the drive-ins. And there's a few events that were having that took place in 2019. Yeah, we just wanted to there's always going to be the opportunity for the traditional theatre and the cinema, and that's along the line that will happen in the near future. But we thought the best way is to watch it at the drive-ins. That was where it would have originally been seen anyway, and let alone just it'll be a nice summer night. We've got some Mad Max cars coming along. We've got some car clubs that are on board, and it's just going to be an amazing night. And what better than on a big drive-in screen than but yeah, it's definitely so that there are a series of special event screenings that are taking place, and they're all on the Umbrella Entertainment and Monster Pictures website, but also there's links on our Facebook page. They'll be on the Wasteland Facebook page, and they're being rolled out piece by piece across the country as well. And then yeah, we'll just wait and see what's in store for the next few months from that. So but it's definitely it's been a long 2 years, as we can all imagine. So now we're ready and we're excited and pumped to get it out there. So
exactly. No, this pandemic has certainly made film releases and distribution somewhat difficult.
It has indeed. But I think it's the positive thing that you could bring out of something like this is that especially for me, it gave us time to really think about and plan for the future, because there was always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. There was always going to be a positive future, and I think most of us did that, besides everything else that was coming and going. But there's always a sign of hope and sign of positivity that's going on. So yeah, it's interesting. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely, and I'm sure you'll get a fine audience, great audience for the screenings of Beyond the Wasteland. Just a few quick final questions, Eddie. I noticed you were part of a film called Peekaboo a few years ago, and that was a horror film.
Yes. So,
tell me about that.
So I spent many years as a director of photography, just shooting short films, music videos, ads, corporate, you name it. And that was just really to build experience, to work on a film set. And there was a handful of feature films. So Peekaboo was, as you can imagine, as a young filmmaker, we're all inspired by horrors and thrillers and so forth. So Peekaboo was an attempt to pretty much take a feature project from script to screen all the way through. So it was an attempt to write, co-produce, direct, shoot, the whole lot. And it was an opportunity to just enjoy the process and to build experience on the entire process. And it was complete. It was all finished. But it was at a time when I just wanted to go, to understand the entire process all the way through, for myself, and a bit of a practice run, you can say. And I did take Peekaboo to the AFM in 2010, and I just wanted to even understand the distribution process and meeting sales agents and people in the marketing industry, and just really broaden the horizons. But I did decide not to release it, not for anything from the production perspective, but I just it was something that I just wanted to, with Phil and and many of others, just really go through the process. And then and I knew one day that there'll be a calling for a project of an international level, what I mean. So but otherwise, it's a great film, and it was, I'm glad I went through the process, because it was split up across 2 shoots, and it was in winter and it was cold, and the sun was there and the sun wasn't there, and but yeah, otherwise it was definitely something that I'll always I'll never forget. So
okay, very good. And so are you working on another film at the moment?
Yes, so Phil and I are working. We've been developing two feature films over the last couple of years, and we're at a point now where we're in a pitch process through pitching it to market, and then we'll sort of begin from there and take it to the script stage. So there's still a bit of work to do. Yeah, and we're ready to go. We're just waiting for life to return to the new normal per se, and and these projects do involve quite a bit of travel. But at the same time, we're super excited, and we're just hoping that 2023 is a year of production, and then we'll just go through there. But we do quite a bit of other work. But as far as as far as long form, we're just going to focus on getting Beyond the Wasteland out there, and just focus on distribution and marketing, and and create some awareness.
Okay.
And then in the meantime, we're just working on two projects, so we'll see where they take us. So
I know you. I don't want you to reveal details, but are they a particular genre? Are they thrillers, dramas, horror? What are they?
Yeah, so they're quite contrast to each other. So one is sort of it's an action adventure, survival kind of film, and the other one is with elements of drama. And then there's one which is more aimed at the younger audiences. So we have a strong passion for children's films, as far as like a fantasy, action, fantasy drama adventure. So they're both from totally separate areas. But yeah, these ones that are we've got a slate of films that we've just we've built over the last 10 years, and these two are the ones that really have a place in our hearts for the moment. Yeah, so they're quite interesting. So yeah, one's sort of aimed at the young audiences, and the other one's more of an old the mid sort of range survival action film. One's based on a series of true events and stories, and the other one's completely fictional. Fictional. So but yeah, that should be interesting. So we'll see where that takes us for the next 6 to 9 months, and then hopefully we'll have something to share with everyone. So
all right, I'll watch your progress with interest. We'll see what happens. And last question, Eddie, I love asking all filmmakers, have you seen any other films of late, streaming, cinema, television, anything that has impressed you?
Oh wow, I think that and I look, definitely I'm sort of I watched some TV, but I sort of focus more, as you can imagine, on film and documentaries. So lately I've had a few binge and Netflix sessions, on a wide array of shows. But I haven't I've been a bit behind on the 8 ball because I've just been focused on developing, and just script work and everything else. And you spend 12, 14 hours on that, and your brain's just gone in overdrive. But at the moment, nothing in, nothing sort of, in concrete. But I'm looking forward to, getting back out there. So it's a strange, not a strange, but it's an interesting time, because when you're focused on your work, you tend to block out, the world in a way, the reality side of things. And you just focus, full time, and then you eventually come back to, to earth. And but nothing in particular. I've sort of dabbled between documentaries and some shows. But if I'm always watching, just to I guess and for me, I find it hard to watch something as a viewer with a box of popcorn and a chop top, because I'm always overanalyzing shots and production quality and performance. So I have to stay away from the screen, because it doesn't, I think the last time I enjoyed a film was probably 3 or 4 years ago, where you just sort of sit it, but but I guess as far as genres, if that, is of interest, it's always fantasy and period, and, some just something that sort of, more on the fictional side of, the storytelling process.
Okay, fair enough. Beyond the Wasteland is releasing in February at selected cinemas around Australia, and in particular in Melbourne at the Coburg Drive-In on the 5th of February. And we've been speaking to the writer-director of Beyond the Wasteland, Eddie Beyrouthy. Eddie, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for your time and for your support. And yeah, we look forward to having, you know, catching up and talking film a lot more. So it'll be interesting. Thank you so much for your time, Peter.
No problem at all. Good to talk to you. All the best, Eddie.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.